Hospitality Committee webinar, The Future of Hospitality in the Next Normal. Today, we have extremely eminent speakers from the industry. I would now like to welcome Dr. Subarna Bose, Chairperson of the Hospitality Committee of the Bengal Chamber and Chief Mentor, International Institute of Hotel Management, to take this forward. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharnali, and good afternoon to all the eminent panelists for this session, all the gents actually, unfortunately, for the first session, which is going to be a session which I'll be moderating on the future of hospitality, the next normal. And we have with us some absolutely eminent people. We have Mr. Raju Bharat, who is the Vice Chairman of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industrial Hospitality Committee. We have Sumit Suri, who has been the head of the Marriott Hotels in Bengal and Eastern India, and of course, General Manager of JW Marriott Kolkata, the iconic hotel. And we have got A.D. Singh, I mean, from the food and beverage, for joining us all the way from Mumbai. And we have somebody from the airline, flight catering, and also from aviation sector, Shekhar Mukherjee, who is the general manager East for the Taj SATS. So we have got a very diverse group of people, and we are going to talk on the next normal. But then, what is the future of hospitality? We have seen the hospitality taking showing a lot of resilience over the last 18 months in spite of the pandemic. There has been a lot of ups and downs, more downs than ups, and I think things are settling down after the huge vaccination, especially in the cities, in the urban centers. I think things are looking up. We can see some real green shoot this time, and the lockdowns are now been more or less been relaxed in most of the states in India. And we can see the new projects getting opened from the education point of view. I'm happy to say that so many of our students getting placed this year, which was not the case last year. I think there are hotels who are recruiting in big numbers, not just hotels, but also restaurants, food service. And I think the biggest story for the last 15 days in our industry has been that biggest IPO in the history of India has been a food company. Of course, it's not a food company, but it's something to do with the food. The Zomato, the biggest IPO that has been recorded, which even huge companies, huge multinationals could not do. I think Zomato's huge success in getting that kind of subscription, that kind of a response to the market is a great thumbs up to the industry. And so things are not that bad as it was possibly 6 months back, 9 months back, and we are all looking forward for a future which is going to be possibly a little different from it was maybe post in a pre-March 2020. We have got some very eminent speakers. So first of all, I'd like to call upon my very good friend for many years, Raju Bharat, who owns the hotels, the Kenilworth Hotel in Calcutta and Goa. And right now, he's actually talking from his beautiful luxury beach hotel in Goa. You could see the background, but that's only his office. Just the other left side is the beach. And he is going to talk because Goa has been one of the most success story last year also. And resorts have actually started doing again very well, very brisk business. So I'll start with Mr. Bharat, and then after that, I will move to another hotelier from the city, Sumit Suri, General Manager of JW Marriott Kolkata, and then I'll move to the F&B sector, where I go for Mr. Singh, who is a legendary figure in the food and beverage, as we all know. And then I will touch upon with Shekhar Mukherjee about his very important inputs on what's happening on the sky, on the aviation, on the flight catering, and entirely doing with the flight kitchens and the entire story of the sky. So, Mr. Bharat, if you can start, what do you think is going to be the future of hospitality, the future of the industry, the future of the entirety as a tourism sector in entirety, and not really just the hospitality as a part of it? Over to you, Mr. Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. And I think these get-togethers that you organize and webinars, it's encouraging, because I think we meet members of our industry and exchange ideas and get a lot of hope and strength from each other. I think it's essential to be connected in this difficult period. So yes, I think the future is always been good. The hospitality industry is a huge contributing industry to the economy, and it will always be there. People will always enjoy and travel. But I think this moment that we are going through is extremely difficult. And for many of us, especially in the hospitality industry, smaller companies are struggling, I would say, in terms of the way the situation is. We have a business hotel in Calcutta, we have a leisure hotel in Goa, so there's a totally different style of managing and different clientele. So we've seen both sides of the spectrum, and yes, as you mentioned, Goa did well. But if you look at it from last year, we have been facing huge challenges in terms of our top line, no bottom line, cash flows, which have been very stressed. So the entire focus has shifted to, trying to stay alive, trying to manage our cash flows, hold our teams together, which is the backbone of our operation. And it's been extremely painful letting go of people. But this experience, this pandemic, we are still in uncertain times. And even though we see certain improvements, we really don't know where we stand. One thing for sure is that in the leisure market, long-haul travel, I don't see is going to recover, at least for the next 1 or 2 years. There's going to be some structural changes, which we can already see. People are preferring, and they will continue to do that because it involves cost reduction in companies where they would be meeting over Zoom and internal meetings. Currently, also people are just traveling for very essential, either to meet family or for medical reasons and so on and so forth. So the business traffic, even the restaurants, people are enjoying home delivery. So this is the time when change is happening. Many of us are adjusting to that change, but it's not the same in terms of revenues, in terms of the share that we have. So I think, and many opportunities that we talk about in the hospitality industry, where we can use our assets for doing other things, is again not the same. So I feel that we'll have to just ride this through. We need to keep everything together. We need to communicate, work on our cash flows and look at reducing our expenditure, doing a lot of multitasking, and just keeping the ship afloat for maybe a couple of years more and hoping that things will get better. Structurally, I feel the customer has his own perception. He is looking at a different way of being handled. And that's where the challenge is, because our business is a people's business. And today with, contactless service and contactless menus and payment systems, and we are kind of isolating ourselves from our customers and our guests, wearing masks. I mean, the smile is the foundation of when we receive our guests. So all these things are not so well accepted in the Indian market. Yes, in the Western world it works. You don't even service a room to the guests there. You don't enter a room. There's no minibar service. But in the Indian point of view, I think this is a challenge. And so there's a point where the guest wants that. He wants to be very safe. He wants to walk into a sanitized, hygienic place. But he also wants that warmth, and which he's used to. So that's the balance I think we need to kind of find in the hospitality industry, that bring in technology but not get carried away. So that's one of the challenges. And I think the biggest fear and uncertainty today we are facing is with our team, because really people don't know where they're going and whether this industry is going to last. And because young people are get panicky very quickly. So we have to really hold them close and make sure that their morale is high. And, and also like at Kenilworth, we are appointing a hygiene officer. It's like on an HOD, so that we give the full priority to hygiene and sanitation. So these are some of the changes I think which we will be holding on to and will be seeing as we go. A lot of more technology will be coming. That's where we need to balance all these things. But otherwise, as you mentioned, Dr. Bose, the future is there. We have to ride it, and I think it should come back with a huge boom, and things should come back. But the business traffic is something which we'll have to wait and watch and see how it changes in terms of customer expectations. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Bharat, what's the kind you were saying about 2 years? What's the time frame you feel you are looking at for the future of hospitality to come to some semblance of the pre-March 2020 figures?
I think 2023, hopefully, with the waves coming and going, we don't know how long, but 2023 for long haul, that's for people to really travel internationally, should be a possibility. And on the business hotel side, I feel things like conferencing and is going to meetings, the number of those meetings and conferences will reduce. So that is something. Business travel, we may reduce a little bit because of technology. I think that's one certainty I can see. So one would have to adapt and see other sources of revenue for a business hotel like home delivery and so on, which we've already got into. So we would have to see how we could navigate this in terms of leisure traffic will do well. There's a trend of people driving. 40% of our guests last year in Goa were driving, which was a good thing. So even though flights reduced from 80 flights a day to 8 flights in Goa, I mean, that was a huge reduction. But because of driving and the good road system, people were, so we kind of compensated. So there's changes. There's definitely structural changes coming up, which we have to keep our eyes open for.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bharat. We'll now move on to Mr. Sumit Suri, General Manager, JW Marriott, and who is in charge of our absolutely rock solid business hotel and in Kolkata, and of course took over in the turbulence from Gaurav. And so, Mr. Suri, over to you. The future of hospitality according to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. It's always nice to speak in these forums and kind of put our heart out on what we're thinking and sharing. And I think we definitely know that the consumer behavior has changed dramatically during this COVID period, and their spending patterns have changed. We realize that they've kind of moved in from discretionary spending to more of other kind of spending. For example, we've seen a big boom in education and mobiles and electronics getting used. Literally every house has different platforms used for working and for children to study. And this was something which I don't think we thought in our lifetime. And so on one hand, I see while people have reduced spending on hotels or on discretionary travel to some extent, there is money being spent on other things. So I wouldn't say that people have stopped spending. In fact, definitely they have saved because of travel, and I'm sure this money is waiting in for people to, they're already making plans of where they want to go next, whether it's the nearby destination or a future travel to an international destination in the coming days. And I'm sure it's likewise for people from outside India who want to come back to India. So there is definitely that pent-up demand. I was hearing the news that the sector to UK had just opened, and the rates had skyrocketed as far as the airlines are concerned, which clearly shows how many people want to travel on an immediate basis. I think what is important is, again, to re-engage with the customers and build trust. But to give some stats before we kind of understand the future, some good numbers. I think what we have realized is that we are already moving in occupancies of above 40% to even nearly 50% in some places. Of course, we know the leisure segments are doing extremely well. And I know in some cases during weekends, they even go sold out and probably even crossing the pre-COVID levels. But even with city hotels, especially when I talk about our region in Calcutta, we are witnessing a strong buoyancy of business. We've never seen 40-45% of occupancy since the COVID had started. So this is the first time we are witnessing this kind of buoyancy. I was reading about the US and UK markets, and I believe they've even touched 60% of occupancies during the summer season and breaks, so which is very encouraging. We've seen that while the recovery is still 50% to 2019, but what has happened is, because I think as hoteliers, we have managed to understand our cost a little better over the last 1 year. And when I was noticing our recovery percentage, while the revenue recoveries are still the same, we're still 50% down of 2019, even as we sit in Q3. But the GOPs, if you see the recovery versus 2019, they're definitely improved, which clearly means that while we are doing business and we continue to do business in the near future, we'll manage our cost well, because we've got a hang of every number in our P&L. We understand our fixed cost, we understand our variable cost, how we can change our fixed cost to a certain extent. So I think that's a great learning which I personally have got, and I'm sure many more hoteliers have got. And I think the proof of the pudding will be this: when we actually get back to the pre-COVID levels, will our profits be far better than what we were doing in 2019? And I think that's where the returns will really come into picture. I also feel that there is a huge demand we've seen in celebrations and weddings. And I was doing a bit of analysis on, we're doing weddings of 50 people or 100 people, and we used to do weddings for about 800 people at one point of time. And what was surprising to see is that we're almost coming to a similar revenue of what we were doing for maybe a 500 people, which means that, going with the concept of minimum revenue. So I realized one thing: for the sake of a client wanting a big space where he wants to do an event for even 100 people, he is ready to pay the price for almost the same number which he was paying for 600 people. He wants to do the same decor, So it's not that people have stopped spending on these things. They want to spend more. It's about how we sell the package. If obviously there's panic in our industry, then we go on a price war and we dilute the pricing. But I think clearly the demand is very high. With Calcutta being a very good big market in weddings, November, December, the auspicious days are almost sold out. And we are on the verge of looking at January and February, and there are so many weddings which are still to be fixed, because they are not going to do international destinations now. People don't know what is going to happen in January and February. When is the third wave going to start? So nobody wants to make plans for the next 2-3 months. So they probably want to do in the same destination. So which is encouraging that then you can actually work on the price and give them that value. Another interesting thing we saw was that when the second wave happened, which obviously none of us knew it's going to come in, a lot of us thought that it's going to take another 2 or 3 months for things to recover. But actually it did not work like that. What we lost in May, we gained in June. So literally in May and June, you covered up the loss of May, which means the cycles have become very short. So even if the third wave has to come in, however big or small it is, we can't really make a judgment on this. One thing is I'm confident that the cycle will be short and we will come back much faster than what we did in first wave. What is happening, of course, is every state has its own set of rules. So every state is also behaving differently. The rollout of vaccines, of course, have been very encouraging. We know that most of the hoteliers have managed to, do the first dose. And I think now we are on the verge of doing a second dose, which gives a lot of encouragement to our guests. Even if they're making a normal conversations, they know that most of the associates we're treating them like frontline workers, which has been great. And I think there's been a lot of work done on that. And of course, the other thing is that we're also noticing that the guests are now coming in who are booking us through retail. They're doing a fine blend of leisure and corporate. So when people are coming to a hotel, while they're on work, they're also doing their leisure. They're coming to meet their families and they're also working because they can work from anywhere, right? So now, in one way, we feel, of course, that corporates are going to be suffering because they're not traveling. But the other way, on the other hand, they can actually go to any destination, then do their business and also do the leisure. So this is another new segment which is open to us, where people are doing a fine blend of both leisure and corporate. Um, of course, there's still time for recovery, and I agree that it's going to take another year and a half or 2 years for things to really come back to normal. But for sure, we have learned to handle more with less. We kind of started understanding that what will give us the ROI. Every time there's an investment to be made, we kind of trying to understand what is the kind of returns we're going to get and how much we're going to make out of it. So with that sensibility, we kind of spent our money very wisely this time and not offhand. Of course, digital, we've spoken a lot about it. I'm not going to cover that point, but it is here to stay. Simple things like QR codes or mobile check-in, mobile fees are going to be the must of the future. But what is important is, and I agree that we have to strike the right balance between the technologies and the human interaction. Also, what is important is with the increased technology, there's also a risk of privacy issues and data security. So what has become more important now is that while people are using more of digital, they also become wary of how we're using the data, because a lot more data collection which is now coming in with the hotels, and they're very, very they really want to know exactly how hotels are using. So data privacy is going to be a very, very important aspect in the coming years. And of course, trust is the binding of the whole relationship. How we engage with our customers, how we tell them that we are actually taking care of the hygiene part of the physical environment is going to be very important. Bio bubbles are going to be very important. We've seen that MICE events like the sports or even movie crews, they all want to do business with hotels, but they want their own bio bubble space. So we've seen the future MICE events, which are going to happen in the next few months. Bio bubbles are here to stay, and each hotel will have to figure out that how we are going to and what kind of space we need to give them with these things. I think the role of our concierge and operators have become very critical, because today guests are calling and asking all kinds of questions. What is happening in the city? What is the latest rules? When does the curfew start? What can I get in the room? What I can't get in the room? So we have to show that empathy with customers. The health and sustainability, of course, are here to stay and becoming more and more important, because people are very conscious about their immunity system, because that's directly related with whether they're going to get the next COVID attack or not. And of course, since the road to recovery is bumpy, we need to be very agile. How we're going to change decisions? We do revenue meetings, we do our credit meetings, we do our regular strategy meetings, but what we discuss today can change tomorrow. So how we are going to swiftly change our decisions, how fast we're going to navigate this uncertainty, how fast we're going to understand what's going to happen in the next 15 days is most critical. Last but not the least, I like to just talk about a little bit on talent retention and manpower. I have realized that while we are working with less number, I think it's becoming more and more critical that we understand that whether we are hiring the right talent for the right job. Because since we are going to be working with less numbers, we need to be more efficient, we need to be more productive. That does not mean that we need to work for long hours, but we need the right productivity for the right job. So I think that's going to be very, very important. I don't see, people who want to join the industry, they are not compromising on salaries. In fact, I would say they're coming at a little more expensive price because they have alternate industries today. So they have retail, they have these third parties like Zomato or Amazon coming into picture. So we've got competition actually now. So once we actually open up in the next maybe 6 months to a year, I definitely see we will have shortage of labor, we will have shortage of manpower, and we may have to pay a little expensive price for that. So what is going to be very important for us is that how we're going to retain our existing talent, how we are going to show them their career path. We need to do a specific development plan with them. We need to talk one-on-one with them, and we need to listen to them. And I think that will really define, because people or guests, when they enter a hotel, they expect the same service and the same standards what they were expecting pre-COVID levels. So we can't cut corners anywhere. We are in a luxury space. We need to outdo ourselves. And for that, we need the right talent. So these are some of my thoughts. And over to you, Dr. Bose.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sumit Suri. Two things I just want to bring here. As we are talking about the future of hospitality, you did mention about the technology and the data. I personally feel that technology will play a very important role in the management of the properties from now on. I mean, obviously, that is not going to be just one of the tools, but that possibly will be a very, very strong backbone for running the industry. I mean, I remember your property Marriott in US was the first property in the world to introduce the Alexa in the rooms, actually, where with the Alexa voice and the Alexa skills, you can a guest can do all the weird things like opening the doors and closing the curtains and things like that, and order a cup of cappuccino. So I think the technology, I think, would be very, very decisive backbone. And I believe that the big hotel chains like Marriott or Hyatt, Taj, ITC, they all need to invest a lot on the technology, because technology will become the backbone for many operations which are previously possibly you could have managed. And the second point which you mentioned about the recruitment, I think you are absolutely right. I mean, now hotels need people who are good people, because you are operating with less number of people, so you need champions. In fact, it's quite interesting. You mentioned about Zomato in your one of the things, and why I was so thrilled about Zomato was not because Dipender Goyal got 65,000 crore, but because they are recruiting our students, paying 30, 35, 40,000 rupees, because they want to actually spend the money which they have which they have picked up from the market on hiring the right kind of people. And that is actually going to be a challenge for a lot of hotel, where the students, new fresher, even with 1 year experience, have got the option of working in the hospitality core sector or the allied sector. So you are absolutely right that possibly you need to pay more money to get the right kind of human resources. I think I agree with you. And of course, that data security, I think, is very, very important, because India is still much away from the GDPR and all, and we still kind of play with data, like it's very loosely, if I can say. But of course, the time's coming, then we would be like a GDPR in the other countries, in the way Europe, where the data security would be very important, and there will be very, very strong prosecution for the data leakages, which generally happens in a lot of places. So thanks very much, Sumit Suri, for that very comprehensive overview. And I must say that I was in Mr. Suri's Marriott for a lunch a week back on Sunday, and there were 100 people waiting outside restaurant, which is such a great joy to see that. Obviously, with that kind of thing in Calcutta, I think is happening. The F&B sector is actually doing better, even at the 5-star sector, which used to be like F&B was mostly restaurant and only few people used to come to 5 stars. But now people are coming to the 5 stars in big number. And so the next speaker is Eddie Singh, the person who understands F&B possibly better than a lot of people in the country. I'd like to ask Eddie about what's the future. What do you think the future of hospitality from the F&B point of view, and how does technology and other things are going to change, or is it going to come back? Whatever you feel like. Over to you, Mr. Eddie Singh.
Dr. Bose, my fellow panelists, and everybody listening in. I think the first important factor that me and my team have been trying to assess is how is this pandemic going to change the market for the future? My own assessment, hope I'm wrong as well, is that now that COVID has struck, I think we need to plan and imagine a future with this as a part of our lives in possibly different mutated forms. So when it struck last year, we hoped a couple of months it'd be over and we can move on. It struck again, it probably will strike again this year, and there's no clarity on what the future is going to be. So I think plan for pandemics to be part of our life and our future for the next so many years. It is true we're getting vaccinated, but these viruses have the potential to mutate as well, and we may need new shots, booster shots, etc. So I think we have to look at a life where this is going to be a part of our life for some years to come, and will shape a lot of our patterns, our preferences, our decisions, the way we live for some time. On the good news front for F&B players, I'm very optimistic. I firmly believe that people's desire to go out, meet, have a drink, meet friends, meet family is a very important part of their life, and that's not going to go away. People really need that break that they get in their days. You know, life's not easy, work's not easy, and they want that connect. They want to be seen and see what's happening. They want to spend time. They want to have a little fun and a little break. So I'm very bullish on the future of our sector for years to come, despite pandemics, different viruses, etc., being part of our lives. The new normal, fine. I'm still very bullish on the sector. How is it going to change? I think, as I think Mr. Suri mentioned, and Dr. Bose mentioned as well, about a year ago in the summer of 20, when we were in the middle of the lockdown and the pandemic spread, it's very worrying for me and so many restaurateurs. Would we even survive and come back? Would people ever come back out again? And I can share with everyone that once the lockdown stopped, very quickly the numbers in restaurants grew. And despite the restrictions that were in place, by February, March, we were almost back at 100% of our pre-COVID revenues, despite all the restrictions on social distancing, on parties, on bar nights, etc. So that was very, very encouraging for me to see. Then, of course, the second wave hit. But again, as it's receding, restrictions are easing, the numbers back in the restaurants are very good. Maharashtra, of course, as most of you know, it's only open till 4 o'clock. It's very difficult. But even then, the lunch businesses have been very good, much better than ever before. So I think we will ride through this. I think we will come out stronger. And I'm very optimistic about the future businesses of the F&B industry. There is quite simply no substitute for that. People talk a lot about delivery. Yes, the delivery market in our country is going to grow exponentially. But delivery is no substitute for the dining out experience. It's a substitute for Ghar Ka Khana. And with the lovely choices we have with so many home chefs as well, you get such great things in delivery. That segment will continue to grow, but it will not affect the dining out segment. That has its own legs and will just have a very bright future ahead of it. However, will people's patterns change after their experiences so far and projected experiences for the years ahead? Yes, for sure. In what way? I'd say one, definitely, as much as possible, weather permitting, people would rather be safer and sit outdoors. For all of you planning new restaurants, try and have a good outdoor space or option for your potential customers. Will this, for example, affect malls, the mall business? My guess is yes. Though they're very large, they've worked very hard on safety, sanitization, etc. In people's minds, that will be a worry point. And so I think malls in the future will replan and try and focus also on having good alfresco options to give people that comfort. Will this new word that came into our lexicon of social distancing still be there, and will that be the way we go out and eat? Yes, it will be. We will have to continue to have a level of social distancing as time goes on, which of course, unfortunately, decreases the capacities all of us in our restaurants can put in at any given time. I do imagine that the government will be supportive and will increase the time frames that restaurants can stay open, because they don't want people to jam in any more than we do. And that will help a bit, I would say. But social distancing is here to stay. Will we be able to squeeze people in for parties, bar nights, weddings, etc.? It is natural for us when we go out and we are having a good time not to be too far apart from each other. But I think we will have to continue to be careful for years to come and monitor our habits with some level of caution for sure. Masks, we have to keep wearing masks. I'm afraid so. As the pandemic rises and falls, the prevalence of masks can go up and down. But I think they are a new way of life. And I think it's going to change a lot of patterns in many industries, the fact that masks have become a part of our lives. Will restaurants have to be increasingly focused on hygiene and sanitization, thermal screening, distances? Yes, that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. I think this last year and a half has increased everybody's focus on these areas, which leads in the end to better, safer meals for customers. And that I think we will have to continue to do as we go on, no question. FSSAI, other bodies have tried to put in regulations. They will put in more, and these will be more comprehensively enhanced. But I think these will be for the good of our customers, and will give them confidence and safety security to go out, which is very important. Lastly, what I'd like to end by saying is that, for all of us, our lives have changed. Our work-life balance changed. We realized we didn't need to travel as much. We could do that many more things at home. We were able to give us more level of priority to our families. And I think once everything starts to come to a new normal, I think our workforce will also have changed in what they want. And as Mr. Suri was saying before me, in terms of our future hiring and planning, we will need to have less people working for us. We will need to give them better training and hire better trained employees. And probably along with all that, we will have to give them a better work-life balance, more time off, so they can lead the life that they're now getting used to. The only way to, of course, manage all that is probably customers will have to be used to higher prices. But again, as we know, customers all over the world do care. For example, if you're sourcing ethically, organic, fair trade, etc., customers are willing to pay more. So I do believe in the future, customers will pay more where a restaurant or restaurant group is focused on giving a better work-life balance to its employees, keeping them happier. And of course, along with that, sourcing is going to be also increasingly in focus with a premium on ethical sourcing. And I think those are all good trends for our industry, and something I think good that's come out of it. So to conclude my little speech, I would say, I wish all the restaurateurs on this panel and watching all the best. I'm sure we will come out of this well. We just need to survive the tough times for a little longer.
That was very positive, Mr. Eddie Singh, and we are absolutely looking forward for that kind of scenario. In fact, the other day during our fellow of IHM ceremony, we are talking with Chef Chris Galvin, and he said that I've been cooking for 800 people today. I never done it for the last 7 years. So there is a part of F&B come back in the UK especially, and generally in a lot of other European countries, and we are yet to see that kind of spurt. But yes, things are definitely looking for people going for it, and I think we need to also look for a little macro strategy here. The problem is that hospitality has never been a part of the government's priority sector, whatever way you put it. Yeah, you mentioned about FHRI. They tried their best, but then poor guys, they could only meet the secretary. I spoke with Puneet Chatwal. I said I met 50 times the tourism secretary, but nothing really came. So unless we have a little bit of a infrastructure thing, for example, we are doing Incredible India campaign for the last 50 years or so, I don't know, so far as I remember, and there's such a huge scope for the gourmet tourism, such a huge scope for food tourism. We have just set up about 3 months back IIHM Global Center for Hospitality and Tourism Research, and we have got about 8 people who are going to work on it, including important. So there should be some kind of a little long-term thinking. We all are very, thinking for the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. We can promote places like Goa, where my friend Raju is here, left of his beach, sitting on left of the beach. But then, I mean, Goa is always been a great destination. But even the Goan food, Keralite food, Bengal food, I think it's such a great blessing we have got, the gourmet of Indian cuisine, where people like you have created. I think we should look for a little long-term strategy for next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, where we can develop this as a part of our tourism culture, and not just for the foreigners to come, but also for people of the India to come from east to west, from west to north, and go and really make it a tourism destination. So our last speaker is Shekhar Mukherjee, the ever smart, dapper, and very, 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 very well-spoken Shekhar Mukherjee, heading the Taj SATS for many years, and with the Taj family for 38 years, as you were saying before the program. And Mr. Mukherjee, over to you. The future of hospitality, looking at the sky. I think you are in the airport right now, near the airport at least.
Absolutely. At
Thank
the
you.
office. Good evening, Dr. Bose. Good evening, my fellow panelists. And first of all, sir, thank you very much for having me here. It is indeed a privilege to be amongst the chieftains of the hospitality industry. Though we are a bit away at the outset, slightly away from the main core hospitality industry, I would still like to remind ourselves that over the period of last 30, 40 years, we have seen oil crisis during 72, 73. We have seen Iran-Iraq war between 81, 82. We have seen Gulf crisis. We have seen 9/11, SARS, everything. But the word unprecedented became the most and we all are aware that a challenging time gives birth to and accelerates the new ideas, new technology. And as you very rightly said, that technology is here to stay. But that would be some in the short term and some in the medium term, short term to medium term around. That we need to see from time to time. QR codes are here to stay. But sir, I think it would be very important for us at this stage of, at this point in time to check who are going to be our customers of the future. There was a time when 30 years back we were talking about red wine with red meat, white wine with white meat in the F&B industry. Days have changed. So who all are going to be our customers? How will they travel? As Mr. Bharat was saying, that most of the people are now traveling by car, possibly because of the situation. So the word evolving, how the people are changing their stance from one to the other, is something which is worth noticing. And you said that our industry is resilient. It is strong. It is hardy. It is a spirited industry. As a result of which, all this, even 9/11 or 26/11, did not actually put us down for a very long time. Technology has changed. I was listening to the chief of AirAsia talking in one of the webinars, sir, where he was addressing a group of people, and he was saying that there are three interesting things that the airlines have done. One is use of HEPA filter. The second, the air change, it changes 30 times within 1 hour. So every 2 to 3 minutes, the entire air within the aircraft gets changed. And the third thing is there is a push of the fresh air from top to bottom, as a result of which it gets sucked at the bottom. The very fear of people, if they are at all, is that air is moving from front to back, or otherwise that is not there. Mainly, I'm trying to inform you that we need to bring in and buy in the confidence of the customer. Unless we have the customer's confidence, getting them back will be very, very difficult. And as all the panelists said very clearly, that from short term to middle term, they are taking a lot of measures to ensure that the customer's confidence is built back. I think that is the way forward, sir. Dr. Bose.
Yes, absolutely right. I think what you said, Mr. Mukherjee, is resonating with the theme, and obviously technology will play, I think, even more stronger role in the aviation and the airport management than in the hotels. I think because when you talk about an airport terminal, the management of the people, management of the luggage, baggage, everything, I think it would be very, very tech centric. Now we have with us Deblina, although she is one of our member of the Bengal Chamber. So can I just have a 1 minute bite from Deblina, if you are okay, regarding the aviation? Deblina, are you there?
Yes.
Deblina Ramachandran from AirAsia. Can we have
yes,
you?
sir.
Yep.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you just add on what Shekhar said about the future of hospitality in aviation?
Very good evening to one and all. I would also be adding to what Shekhar Mukherjee has said. The aviation industry has also changed a lot. In terms of the flight safety was and is our prime concern. But along with that, we have moved to health and safety, because it's very important to bring back the confidence of flying guests and passengers, and only then we can strengthen the air travel. Another thing is, in terms of revenue, we no longer look into revenue generation from the base fare. We are moreover looking from a cargo and our ancillary revenue. So a few concepts which have come out after COVID is charging for the second piece, or a counter check-in fee, wherein you both encourage a passenger moving into technology, as well as you generate revenue for the company as well. And few other measures like cargo on cabin. So, we are utilizing, not every airline had freighter aircraft prior to this pandemic or COVID days. So airlines which did not have a freighter aircraft, they are using the same passenger aircraft with a new SOP in unloading cargo on the passenger seat. So you have a Airbus 320, which could have carried maximum 5 tons or 6 tons of cargo, can easily now make it as a freighter traveling with or flying with around 10 to 12 tons of cargo. So that's another new innovation which has come up due to necessity. So these are the ways where airlines are also reworking. So that's what
Absolutely, Devlina. And I think there is an airline which was to launch in UK but didn't launch. It was like a Uber cheap airline, something that can give Ryanair value for money. Is that there is no fare for traveling, but then you pay for everything else, including the slot machine of £1 for going to the washroom. So,
yes, so earlier, the AirAsia group also had a similar concept. Still, we never served water also on board. For a guest to purchase, he had to purchase water, food, beverages, everything. So, even for the baggage weight, there was no free baggage allowance of 15 kilo, which certain regulatory bodies used to give. But due to this pandemic, even a very rigid regulator like DGCA has also come up with certain flexibility, which is in a way aiding the aviation industry to have a little bit of breather.
Absolutely, I think the aviation industry needs to rediscover the business model completely, because they cannot depend only on the passenger. And as everyone's saying that people are traveling less, people are doing the Zoom meeting like the one we are doing right now, and they are possibly only flying to the leisure destination. And so possibly you have to convert aircraft at night for carrying the courier or the cargo, as you mentioned, and somehow to get the revenue soaring. In fact, that's the new normal, I believe. You can't earn that kind of money anymore from passenger fare anymore.
Yeah, from the passenger fare, because you have a lot of capping and everything from the regulators. So we, even if the travel comes back or bounce back, we still would not be able to have a lot of leverage on the fare. But from the lot of ancillary revenue things which is really has come up, also to bring back the passengers' trust on aviation, most of the airlines are giving, coming up with new measures like basically a bit of discount to travel all the year during the entire pandemic for doctors and nurses. So these are few of the innovative measures which aviation are bringing back, so that once we bounce back, these will be our loyal customers who would still fly back with us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very interesting talking to you, and possibly airline like AirAsia, which is now Tata's, can buy these small, 20 seaters going from like places like Ranchi to Jamshedpur or things like that, where people actually go by, or so that's very interesting. So we have to basically now finish this, but I have got Sharnali with me. Sharnali, is there any question on the chat box for any of the panelists?
Sir, as of now, we do not have questions.
We do not have any question. Even I couldn't find.
But we've got some very, very encouraging comments which have come in. So
Okay, that's
regarding
great.
the session.
That sounds good. So with that, I think we are in time to say thank you to all of you for joining us in this Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry Hospitality Committee webinar. And which has been extremely interesting and very thought-provoking. I thought a lot of new ideas floated in, and we all learned from all these ideas and try to apply them in our own business, and we try to make them as relevant as possible. So thank you very much, but don't go away, because we have got one more session, and that session is with Mr. Gautam Anand. So we have Mr. Gautam Anand. Shiva, can we spotlight Mr. Gautam Anand, please? There we are. So I'll just give a one minute intro. I know you don't need any intro, but then we have got a huge number of people seeing you and seeing this on the YouTube live and Facebook live. So Diwan Gautam Anand, formerly Executive Vice President, ITC Hotels, and founding trustee of the Cuisine India Foundation, experienced trustee with a demonstrated history of working in the hospitality industry for a long time. Have been in leadership position since 1995, GM ITC Kakatia, Vice President ITC Moria, Vice President Operation and EVP Pre-Opening Services, have co-created iconic brands like Dakshin, Edo, Otimo, India, and Delhi Pavilion. Successful openings like ITC Gardenia, ITC Grand Chola, Welcome Hotel Jodhpur, ITC Grand Bharat, and the list goes on. So let's not go with that, because everybody knows you are a legend. So Diwan Saab, there is no fire. We have got fire in the belly, but no fire on the computer screen. But we have got our team out here, the friends who are the committee members who are in the Zoom. The others are seeing in the YouTube and the Facebook Live. And I've got can we have the camera on for all the committee members for a couple of seconds, so that we can all see you guys. Mr. Sanjeev Johri, one of our most senior member, general manager of the Novotel, and of course we right now saw Devlina, we saw Sumit Suri, and we have got Ajay Rawla, the maverick owner of the Bawali Rajbari of Calcutta, which has now become one of the most sought after the TripAdvisor. And we have Ajay Rawla. Welcome Sandeep, welcome Ajay. And we have also Abhishek Sachdeva, the young, dashing general manager of the Fairfield by Marriott of Calcutta. Abhishek, can we see you? Or it's okay? Thank you so much. Thank you. So all of us, yes, that's better, Abhishek. You can write open. We can see your lovely face. So, and of course, we have got Shekhar Mukherjee and Eddie Singh as well here with us. I'd like to ask you, Diwan Saab, first of all, we have been discussing about the future of hospitality. What do you think about it? What's your, and then my colleagues will take over from me.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. Thank you, gentlemen. I really enjoyed the conversation that you've initiated. I particularly liked not only ADs, of course, he's a dear friend, but Sumit, who is my protege, and I'm proud of that. And of course, my dear friend, Mr. Bharat, and the forever young Mr. Shekhar Mukherjee, and the lovely looking Devlina. So I will give a small elevator introduction to what our conversation is. And as usual, I start with a foreign language. And it says that खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर या तकरीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. If wishes be horses, then the God Almighty will call me up and say, "Hi Gautam, what do you aspire?" But it's not going to work like that, unfortunately. See, neither is God calling me up, nor is God calling any of you up. But what is very real, that it's a time of extraordinary challenges. And when COVID seems like just the prequel to the tremendous other crises that we need to confront, the climate crisis, we've got the crisis in Afghanistan, which is looming, as you know. And we have to assume that the best in one another. So that means you have to work together. So as a hobby historian, I can't say I'm optimistic, but I am hopeful, because hope impels us to act. And there's an old quote that I can't get out of my head these past few weeks. is from Milton Friedman. And Milton Friedman said very famously in 1982, only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When that crisis occurs, the actions that are required or depend on the ideas that are lying around. And my submission to you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Devolina, for being the lady, is that please think first class, right? And think first class, exclusive and non-intrusive. So I think that the days of economy travel, the days of economy eating, dining, living, queuing, nudging, and our own. I'm a North Indian, and we have an expression here. It's called Ji Hazuri. We stalk our customers. How are you? Good morning. Good evening. May I help you? How was your flight? I mean, how does it all really matter? So the days of stalking, intrusion, queues are all over. And I have a very interesting example. So when we were doing the ITC Grand Chola, and we needed new building systems. So me and my colleague Alvin Aruna, who's to head projects, were sent off to the United States to do a recce of the new time-space segmentation, because fenestration had become an important element of the hotel business. And if you go to ITC Grand Chola, not only will you get lost, of course you will get lost, but you will find that the fenestration or the soundproofing that we enacted there was of a completely different order, especially since we had a banquet hall of up to 80,000 square foot. And we checked into the JW, and please, Sumit, if you're listening in, it's not a reflection on the quality of the JW, except that we found, much to our horror, in spite of being respectable gentlemen, and we had little notes in our guest room. Dear Mr. Anand, welcome. Every night it come back, dear Mr. Anand, bottle of water, or dear Mr. Aruna, box of chocolates. But we never interacted with anybody. So we were there for 7 days, and this is Chicago and Maryland and all, God knows whatever. But we never met a single soul. Right? There was no human encounter. All that we noticed were little slips of paper. And as you, Dr. Bose, said, voice-activated technology, right? So everything was available at arm's length. There were little slips of paper. They were personalized. Dear Mr. Anand, thank you, with bottle of water, etc., etc. But where was the GM? We don't know. In fact, when I went to the counter, and by the time this whole merger had taken place, the Marriott, the Starwood merger, and we got what we called as employee rates. All right, those of us who work for Starwood or Marriott, so they wanted my identity, and they were quite horrified to learn that I had worked for 40 years for the same company, because they said that their general managers keep coming and going. So I'm just saying that what we are now exercising or encouraging you to act on has been happening in North America for years. They have not interacted with people for years. So forget about the GM. And then on our way back, we went to London, which was even worse, because in London, we were given a self-check-in kiosk at the Sheraton and Heathrow. We encountered a self-check-in kiosk. All we were asked to do was to self-check-in, and we had a smart card, and they had actually factored in your own smartphone to become a smart card. So so what they were doing is they were even saving money on technology in terms of hardware. So your phone became a smartphone. You checked into the kiosk. You got your key or identity through a Prism. You went into your guest room. The only thing I remember seeing there was an umbrella given to me by the general manager, who we never met again. So we were there for another week, but we never met anybody. So therefore, what we are saying therefore is that it's the new normal is about almost like a touchless service. Now I know there's a human interaction, etc., that needs to be there, but I think we need to see people. And we don't want to necessarily, there's an old adage I should tell people at the ITC Moria, that children are seen and never heard. we don't, because, we were in Delhi, everybody was chattering all the time. How are you? Good morning, etc. So I said, no, you please just seldom seen, seldom heard, and I thought that was a very good strategy because suddenly all the stalkers went. What I learned in America, Dr. Bose, is that they did time segmentation for arrival. So since they were sending us limousines to pick us up, right? And for some reason, they sent Alvin and me 2 different limousines. They ensured that there was a 10-minute gap between Alvin checking in and Gautam Anand checking in. It's another matter that both of us took the same limousine. But the thought process there was that there would be, for every airport pickup, right, or for a shuttle, that there would be a time segmentation gap so that when you arrived at the hotel, there was no queuing, at least as far as the first class is concerned. I am not talking about the run of the house room. I'm talking about what they call the club rooms. There was, as you rightly said, service at every arm's length. So yes, there was a coffee maker, there was a tea maker, there was enough replenishment, there was enough water. There was the need to engage with a human element was absolutely minimal. There was no need to engage with anyone, right? Should you want room service? And let me tell you, if you ever do room service in America, they'll give you room service when they wake up, not when you wake up. So the best thing to do in America is to go downstairs and do room service. Because if you call up room service, nobody ever picks up the phone anyway. So I've mentioned before, no servitude, the bowing and scraping, all that party is over. All right. Hygiene and tangibilization. When I joined the company, Dr. Bose, at the ITC Warrior was my first training ground. Our glasses used to have covers, and the covers used to say, this glass has been sterilized for your protection, because the confidence in Indian hygiene was minimal. And in the WC, if you remember, if you were a customer even then, the WC had banned. So I think it was an important way of tangibilizing hygiene. It's very important, and therefore even more important to your confidence building measures must be tangibilized. If you go to an ITC hotel, and I can take some credit for that, is that in spite of the fact that it's to the point of irritation, the glasses are covered, the plates are covered, the forks are covered, there's paper, everywhere, they recycle paper, but it invokes confidence. So I think Nakul's analogy of reassure has been tangibilized to the degree where you feel safe and protected in an ITC hotel. I'm sure that, Shekhar, you feel protected in a Taj hotel as well. But I find that, at least in my experience, they've tangibilized this very well, all right? So I don't think that contactless service is to be advocated. Don't do what they did to me in North America or in London, and they gave me an umbrella, which incidentally, the umbrella that they gave me, I gave to a Pakistani taxi driver, because I was coming back to Delhi where the monsoons had failed again. I think we should encourage family dining, and I think it's going to be, so when people say that we want last year was 6 or 8, it's important that the microcosm of people who sit together are of the same family, because I think it's that infection that you have, that we keep talking about, is rare. It's a terrible disease. So be very careful about when you get people to share tables or friends to come, etc., because that's where the problem actually starts. I think happy hours should become the happy trolley. So I was in a hotel, I don't want to mention the name of the hotel. So what they did was, instead of having a happy hour, or the cocktail hour, or the luxury hours, ITC calls it, the trolley was coming at every room, knocking on the door gently and saying, what drink can I give? So you were getting your redemption. आपको कहते हैं, हमारे भाषा में कहते हैं पैसा वसूली. You're getting your 2 drinks. But instead of me going to the happy hour, right, meeting all completely strange people, the happy hour was coming to me in my guest room. The namaste. I'm saying that, it's time immemorial, the namaste has been a gesture we have for centuries never touched anybody. If you go to the Vedic ages, right up to when we became colonized, including the Mughal era, we never touched anyone, right? It was only with the advent of the English or the British that we started touching each other, holding hands and shaking hands. Otherwise, as a nation, as a civilization, we always ate alone, right, in the privacy of our homes, and we always never touched anyone. And it's, I don't know whether you know this, but you guys are from the East. And that's a story I've heard from peons, that the Maharaja of Banaras, the great Maharaja of Banaras, the advocacy was that the food can wait for the Maharaja, but the Maharaja will never wait for the food. That his thali was ready. When the Maharaja was ready, he would step in. There was nobody crowding him. He had his food and he left. Spas, gyms, salons, be careful. I haven't got the answers, but I find that, a lot of you experts have the answers. I don't have the answers, but again, what they did to me in Alvin in North America, time segmentation, right? I don't want to go to a spa with naked men anymore, right? I would rather go and do my own moment, charge me. As Sumit rightly mentioned, that, people are willing to pay a premium. So what they are paying for, Shekhar, is for first class. This exclusivity is all about think first class. I don't mind going to a spa as long as it's all first class. When I'm in the spa, I don't want to see, excuse my saying, so I'm using the language which is offensive sometimes, but was used by the Nizam of Hyderabad when in Australia, he was asked to say, "Dear Your Highness, how do you feel about being in Australia?" He said, "Oh, I love it, not a bloody Indian inside." So please excuse me, I'm not being any offensive. All I'm saying is, when I go to a spa, I don't want to see anybody else inside. I want to own that space. And that's when I am willing to pay that price. Vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Again, I'm saying, we see a lot of vaccination hesitancy, but in your spheres, in your communities, you must ensure that, for instance, I booked my driver who's almost lives in with me. So I've actually had to call up the MCG commissioner in Gurgaon because I wasn't able to get a vaccine, to try and get him to get a vaccine. So there is going to be on the 15th of August onward, there's going to be this whole lot of pressure on vaccination, especially for people who are doing the second vaccine. So watch out for that. And if there are people who haven't done the second vaccine, make your bookings now. Okay. And the vaccination must be done. So I was having a chat with Nakul, and I said, it's not good enough to vaccinate myself or vaccinate yourself or what about your customers? So the entire cast of characters must be vaccinated, right? We have to make sure that we are a series of ladies and gentlemen, vaccinated ladies and gentlemen, in the service of vaccinated ladies and gentlemen. That's the small elevator speech that I had, Dr. Bose.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have my colleague Sandeep Jodi. Can we have your camera on, please, Mr. Jodi? Sandeep, your question to Mr. Anand.
Mr. Anand, good evening. It's a privilege to be in a forum when you are present.
Please don't encourage, as long as you don't encourage me to say another couplet, I'll be very happy. But then Dr.
No, that was, I really wish that you continued. It was, acha sama band raha tha. I am very intrigued with the background that you have, Mr. Anand. This looks very beautiful in the times of today when we blur backgrounds and we superimpose backgrounds. Your background is very intriguing, and I'm actually very, very, inquisitive to know what there is. That a studio, or where are you?
No, I'm in my study. I have a small study, and that is the background of my study. And of course, I have invested very firmly because we're now talking to the Bengal Chamber. I must tell them I have invested profusely in Bengal art. So all the artists behind me are all from Bengal or from Calcutta, including.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Fantastic. No wonder you would not want to leave that place. Mr. Anand, a question that I have is something which is not related to today's time, and if I can prick your brain and your experience. Of late, in your times and the times when actually, we started a career, being a general manager used to come to us at a little later in life. These days, you see a lot of young general managers, young managers, and I encountered a situation wherein I see burnout happening. And people do not know what is next. And I honestly do not have answers sometimes to myself also that what's next. But a lot of younger guys who come to the forum and say, what's next for me? And I honestly do not have answers. I mean, you become general managers when you're 30, 35, and what, so how do you, I mean, deal with this, and what path do you show them? Because top of the pyramid is few vacancies than it was, it is down there, you know, so just your insight.
तो जोरी साहब हमारा ताल्लुक हमारी खुद ही जिंदगी से है. So actually I am one of the unfortunate ones. I became general manager at 37, all right, at the ITC Kakatiya. So, but you know, Mr. Rahman, who actually anointed me as a general manager and had the confidence, Habib Rahman, who was our director and an old Calcutta hand, spent most of his life in Calcutta because he was the director for so many years. He told me of a very interesting story. And he said there was a janitor in Japan, right? And the janitor in Japan had a great ambition. You know, this is part of the great Six Sigma process that was happening in Japan those days. And he said that I am going to make my street the best street in my colony. So he achieved that. You know, he got the Denon Award and so on and so forth. And then he said that I'm going to make my street the best street in my district. And then he achieved that. Again, the Denon people came and gave him an award. Then he said, I want to make the street the best street in my suburb. Right. And then the best street in Tokyo and Japan and then in the world. So I'm saying that, you know, if you were to revisit your benchmarks, right, and and that's so therefore sometimes boredom is a legacy thing. And trust me, Johari Sahib, if you love hotels, then you can never leave them. If you don't like hotels, then you shouldn't even start, because you know this burnout jo hota hai, jo kehte hain burnout ho gaye, they don't enjoy this business of engagement. They don't want to engage with product, people, or processes. It is infinitely important to engage with the product. It is infinitely important to engage with the process. It is infinitely important to engage with the people. Without the trilogy, you know, this is the trilogy. Trishur kehte hain. This is the trilogy of running a hotel. So a person who doesn't like this will get burnt out even before he or she starts, because the passion in nahi hai usme. Otherwise, Sumit jaise log hain. Sumit, I've known Sumit from I in fact anointed him general manager of Welcome Hotel Jodhpur, one of the hotels that I opened. He's a young fellow, and contrary to everybody's belief, you know, Gautam, what are you doing, young? I said, don't worry. You know, he's so successful. It's another matter. Bhagavat deke bhagya. How old were you, Sumit, when you became general manager? You're muted.
I was 37.
There you are. See, I'm saying, Sumit Suri, 37, he became general manager, and one of the finest guys I've ever worked with. हम बहुत चीखते हैं, जौहरी साहब, हम बहुत शोर मचाते हैं. हमारे में कोई हम गांधी नहीं है, हम काफी जोशीले हैं, लेकिन हमने कभी जबान नहीं उठाई सुमित पे, बिकॉज वो इतनी काबिलियत है उसमें. He has so much of histrionics and ability that the only person I never raised my temper or voice was Sumit Suri, 37 years old. So I'm saying, so good example, he hasn't burnt out. It's another matter that he has left ITC, which is his cradle, and become disloyal and joined the Marriott, for which he'll never be forgiven. But the question is that, you know, he's still running your best hotel, well, one of your best hotels in Calcutta, and loving it.
No, I must add for Mr. Anand, so with your permission, sir, two things I remember, and I think that's a great learning. I was once standing in Jodhpur only, and he was talking to one of the, I don't remember the person, this is the opening of Shola. If you remember, Mr. Anand, there was an opening of Shola happening, and he was livid. There was something which went wrong. And I was standing beside him. And to my terror, he was livid at that person because something did not go right. And the thing which was going in my mind was, what will be next? And one thing he told me after that, you know, he spoke, that person obviously went off, and I think he was never to be seen in the next few weeks. And the next minute he calmed down. And I asked him, you know, is all okay? Can I have a glass of water or something? And he said, yes, I'm absolutely normal. And one thing he told me, and I remember that, Mr. Anand, about you, and I think it's a great art you have. He said, the anger is from outside. My mind is at peace. What I told that person was my physical attributes. my mental balance never went off. And I think that's such a beautiful art you have, Mr. Anand. I really, really learned so much from you. It's about how do you have a mental peace and you don't get exhausted and you're on, and your physical attributes might change, but mentally you're absolutely bang on what you want.
Thank you. I give credit to the late Arun Jaitley for this, Dr. Bose. So he taught me something very wise. He was a very fine man in his own way, all right? And he said, Gautam, when I'm in court, two things he told me. He said, जब judge का मुंह खुलता है, कुछ डाल दो उसके अंदर. If somebody starts yapping, put something in his mouth. The second thing is, he said, simulate anger. Never get angry. So what I was doing when Sumit is experiencing is exactly what Arun Jaitley taught me. He said, if there is an opportunity and the judge's mouth opens, put something inside. If my boss's mouth opened, I'd put something inside. And the other thing is to simulate anger. Don't get angry, right? So drive fast, don't drive rash.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We have young Abhishek with us. Again, another young general manager. Can I have your camera, please, Abhishek? Sorry. Yeah. Yes. There we are. Abhishek Sachdev, just been in Calcutta for a couple of years in the turbulence of the COVID, and opened the Fairfield by merit and been the youngest of the lot. Abhishek, your question to
what you've done. I must add here that Dr. Bose, somebody has done some good work. So two of my favorite people are right there in front of me. There is and there is Abhishek, who incidentally is my partner in what we started in Bangalore called Karo Bar, right? So Abhishek was with me in ITC Gardenia in Bangalore. It's good to see Abhishek looking successful and overfed.
Yes, I think so. We're working on it. But good to see you, Mr. Anand. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's been a real long time, and hopefully we meet on the other side of the pandemic or even before that, during our travels. Thank you, Dr. Bose, for the opportunity to put forth a question. Mr. Anand, I would like you to sort of, give your two bits on how do you see the work of Cuisine India Foundation, which you're a co-founder of, going forward in a post-pandemic world? I know the whole purpose of the foundation was to try and, put some ancient recipes together and the whole heritage, to be brought to, forth on one particular platter, one particular forum. How do you see that contributing now? Because, I'm sure the work has sort of slowed down over the past, 12 to 18 months because of obvious reasons. When we're on the other side of it, how do you see a comeback, and where do we go from there?
Well, actually, between you and me and, everybody who's listening, Cuisine India was instituted by Amitabh Kant and myself and a few others as a tool for incredible India to have incredible cuisine, right? And it was funded by the Niti Aayog and so on and so forth. And and we were doing great work. We've done a lot of good work. We've traveled the world. We've done all the Make in Indias. We've commanded ships. We've been to Hanover. We've done Davos year after year.
Davos, I was about to say Davos, yes.
Okay, so it's come to a grinding halt over the last 2 years. But what we've now done is with a grant from the Himachal government, we are focusing on the Himalayas. See, we find that a lot of us spend a lot of time interacting with people like you and with Sumit and the more fortunate people like Shekhar. But I found that during the pandemic, my home is in Simla. Okay, I have roots in Simla. My family came as refugees to Simla. That's the only house they knew. So I was born in Simla. So I want to get back to Simla. So we've done a lot of good work in the Himalayan region. So what we do is we do massive walkathons. And we've done this in various centers. We've done this in Manali, we've done this in Simla, we've done this in Kasauli, we've done this in Lahaul Spiti. So we look at re-employment, we look at education, we look at, and this is all gratis, thanks to the vision of and you'll find that the young people of Himachal have actually prospered. So you'll find very good quality. And we haven't touched Uttaranchal as yet, but we are currently in Himachal, and we found that the quality of cuisine and the quality of experience and hygiene and the service levels in Himachal in many hotels and institutions and restaurants has grown exponentially. And we don't hesitate in, and we now have a recipe bank from the Himalayan region, which is now at various levels of, and Dr. Bose, we'll be very happy to share this with your institute as well. But currently we're doing it at the grassroots level, craft courses, etc., etc. So people are not aware, but the Himachal area has some fabulous, and they have, amongst the 5 rivers that the Punjab takes credit for, all the rivers, the 4 rivers come from Himachal. The only one river that does not come from Himachal is Jhelum, which comes from Leh, or even from, Ladakh. But the other 4 rivers, the mighty rivers of the Punjab, all come from Himachal. So they have a fantastic civilizational culture, great cuisine. And remember, their food is so delicious because their water is so pure.
Yeah.
And so what we are encouraging people now to actually galvanize and bottle water. And I was recently in Manali at the Johnson Lodge, which I helped promote. And look, this is not being done with any financial benefit to me, all right, or to the other people who work with me, is that we found that the quality of cuisine had grown, and we've now taken their dham. So there's a Kullu dham, right? And I'll share the videos with the Kullu dham, the Kulluvi dham. So these are all Brahmins who cook meat, by the way. So there's a contrarian belief that the Boti chefs are all vegetarian. They're not true. They are fabulous. So a lot of work happening there, keeping ourselves busy, being careful, right? And we also have an award instituted by this foundation called the Dilip Padgaonkar Award, because he was one of our founders, and he was a fantastic man. And we've not been able to give out the second award or third award because of what happened. But the first award was given to Mr. Habib Rahman. That is the Dilip Padgaonkar Award for international understanding of Indian cuisine. And I did not know anybody else or the jury for that matter. And we'll ask Dr. Bose to join us with the jury, which incidentally includes Amitabh Kant as well, is we don't know anybody else who culturally understands Indian cuisine better than Mr. Rahman himself. And so we are doing, and we're also now looking at, so the apex is the top and at the lowest, young chef of the year. So this year we've given it to a young boy from Himachal, because we have a small bias there right now. But we've done some work with ITC Hotels. So if you go to the Savoy, we gave them an award for the best Himalayan cuisine, right? Through the BBC Good Food. Shafkat used to be, Posa, your friend and my friend Shafkat,
Yes.
Wonderful man. So when we were on the jury with him, we instituted an award for Himalayan cuisine. He was kind enough to let us give that. And we gave it to Savoy and so on and so forth. And, their food has also grown exponentially. Because if you encourage people, then, you'll find that, so they, in fact, they have something known as Thalika. So anyway, I'm boring you to death, but yes, the foundation is doing well. It's broke right now, but the spirit is high. So if you recall the conversation, the couplet that I had, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले या हर तकरीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. So in this case, I'm often asked to say, "भी आपकी रजा क्या है?" हम कह देते हैं. ये होना चाहिए. Anyway.
All the best, Mr.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gautam Anand. That was really, really very, very fascinating, and obviously in your own imitable style. We all enjoyed our fireside chat, and we'd like to thank on behalf of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry as we come to an end. It's just about 5:30, and thanks very much, Swarnali and the team and the IT team for the support, and thanks all the panelists and all my colleagues at the Bengal Chamber of Commerce Hospitality Committee. I could see Sandeep there, Sumit there, Shekhar there, and thanks Mr. Gautam Anand for your time, and we look forward to see you soon, and thank you from all of us from Bengal Chamber of Commerce, Calcutta.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Bose. Your
Dr. Bose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.